Good morning and welcome to our free webinar series, Professional Development. This morning, Ellen Belk is with us. She is a longtime specialist in dementia care, in designing for people with dementia, home settings, perfect for occupational therapists, gerontologists, geriatricians, CAPS professionals, and so many others that we have on the call today. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ellen. Ellen, you can introduce yourself and say some more about your background, but take it over.
Hey, well, thanks, Steve. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the tribe, to which I am a member of. Just so you all know, I am through Steve educated as Universal Design Specialist, and I've even taken the Universal Design Essentials course. CAPS is on my radar. I just have to stop working and traveling and stop in one place long enough to be able to participate. Well, thanks for the opportunity. As Steve said, I am actually a board certified dementia educator. I also have a certification, certified dementia practitioner. The bulk of my work has been, well, let me just also say, I consider myself a silver living strategist. That's a rebranding that we kind of did of my company, Keep in Mind, here in the year 2020. Just because I am a holistic girl and I like to think of the aging and the aging sector that I am over 20 years involved in. It has evolved so significantly. We're losing terms like elder, senior citizen. I thought silver living strategy is a lot more forward thinking and upbeat than all the language we tend to historically have used around the elders that we are privileged to still have among us. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. But let me just kind of get started, and my slides will kind of give you a sneak peek at who I am. So professionally, I have worked in my career for all of these major professional senior housing leaders. These are big, national companies, and I've held dementia. For Brookdale, I was a director. At Atria, I was a divisional director of dementia care. My territory covered 11 states. I had 24 buildings that operationally I was responsible for managing or monitoring and supporting 24 communities in 11 states as a divisional director with Atria. At Milestone, I was a national director of memory support operations. We had over 100, these are professional settings. We had over 100 communities in that portfolio, from Vancouver, Washington to Rhode Island. It was the whole country. So I share all that to say that a lot of my maturation in the aging space and in design, actually, in these roles, both with Atria and Milestone, I was actually had a seat at the table as we were building and creating memory support. And by the way, just for the everyone to know, I refer to memory care as memory support. I think that's what we do. It's much more of a supportive endeavor than just only caring. So just know that I will, throughout this presentation, be using the terminology of memory support. Often I will refer to care partners as team members. So just know, again, the language of our industry, of my industry, of the dementia space, is definitely evolving to be a lot more reflective of holistic and person-centered terms. But in my role, in my professional roles, I had a seat at the table as we were designing new memory support, neighborhoods and freestanding communities. So I'm really proud of the fact that's a fun part of what I've done, because when you are able to encourage and kind of lend voice, if you will, while something is being built, it is actually, you now know that what you've helped create for those living with dementia will benefit them, because the environment is such a key to the success of those of our loved ones and friends living with dementia. I'm also obviously I'm a wife. This is my 93-year-old mother and me. And I'm also, the bottom picture where I'm jumping hysterically, that is when my dad, who had a dual diagnosis of dementia, was still with us. His journey has ended. But so I shared all my professional credentials because I also wanted you to know that I am one of the, millions and millions of adult children who was providing care support to my father as well. So some of the pictures I will be sharing with you today are actually how I dementia friendlied his home. He was one of my first, and of course I was the most passionate about making that home, this is the home behind them, dementia friendly, because it was our intention, like it is with so many people, to have my dad live as long as possible successfully and safely with my mother. This is my mother here in the middle picture. This was a great moment. My husband took this picture. But dad was already diagnosed with dementia at this point. And we, again, our goal as a family was to keep him home safe as long as possible, and as long as my mom could remain safe as his 86-year-old at the time caregiver. So that's the background I bring. Just briefly, I am an entrepreneur. These are many of the things that fall under my brand through my company, keep in mind, but let's get started. So today, I'm not going to be a girl that's going to read every line of every slide I have. I do a lot of presenting. I typically am in front of, adult learners. So I'm going to stop for a second, let you digest what's on the slide, because I think I want you to participate in today's education. I don't have to read it to you. You can read it for yourself. Okay, hopefully that gives you a chance. And again, I will stay as true to those objectives as I can, but of course, please feel free. I know I already have one question. I'm not worried about it because I absolutely am going to be covering how you declutter and get the buy-in from the homeowners, because believe me, I have felt that pain. I actually write articles about it. I hope at the end of this, if I have not scared you away, if anything you find to be valuable at all, I do a lot of writing and sharing of my caregiving journey, both professionally, and I share a lot of tips on LinkedIn. I don't do any other social media but LinkedIn, so hopefully you guys can absorb some of my content there. So again, let's move on, because here's my question to the group. And if you are in a position to type into the chat, and Steve, I might need you to monitor the chat for me. That's probably going to be the best for me if you monitor that. Does anyone know if you say there is no difference, that's an answer too. But if anyone knows if there is a difference, and if you believe there is a difference, what is the difference between the words Alzheimer's and dementia? Please feel welcome to type that into your chat so that Steve can read that to me. Any takers, Steve?
Not so far. Oh, Alzheimer's is one form of dementia, is one answer. A type of dementia is another answer.
Okay, first of all, I'm really impressed, because y'all, I need you to know, I do this. This is a slide I do in every training ever. And the bulk of my training is with I train professional care partners from the front of the line to the executive leadership and ownership groups of these senior housing, most of my clients, and when I was in senior housing full time, there were people in that audience taking care of people with dementia that did not know what your people that just responded. That is absolutely correct. Those answers, they get gold stars. Dementia is actually not the diagnosis. Just like cancer is not your diagnosis. Yes, you might have cancer, but if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, Ellen, you have cancer, before I left the office, I would like to know, do I have breast cancer? Do I have lung cancer? Because the reason being, it's crucial in a cancer situation that we know what we're treating. If I had breast cancer, but they treated me like I had lung cancer, that would be a whole different, diagnostic journey. That is the exact same conundrum in the world of dementia. Dementia is not the diagnosis. That is correct. Alzheimer's is one of, as you look at the slide, up to 100 different conditions that create the memory, behavior, and thinking issues that so impair people that it now becomes a problem. Alzheimer's, we really vary. I've been in this 20 years. We used to say 80% of all people have Alzheimer's. Well, over these years, we've realized it's probably closer to 60 to 70%, as we are now uncovering, new variants, of course, but also just, again, new conditions that are presenting themselves that present as a dementia. Now, one thing I will say, if we were doing a master's class, which we are not, there are dementias that are reversible. And I'll give you the most common example is dehydration. FYI, 75% or more actually of all Americans, from children to grown aging adults, are dehydrated. I am a holistic dementia care solutions expert. That is, I approach my solutions, and that's why the design part is right up my alley, because I believe the environment is so crucial to success of those in our that we are caring and supporting. But dehydration is an epidemic, and the thing about dehydration, even in us, if you are significantly dehydrated, regardless of whether you're 30 or you're 80, you're going to have some cognitive memory recall issues, even if it's momentarily. But if you are an elder who has dementia, you've already have a dementia and you're dehydrated, you have significantly greater issues. Or you're an elder who does not have dementia, but you don't drink, you don't stay hydrated, you're not flushing out your system. You actually will present, and this is very common, it's very, very common, that they will have movement issues. There might be a urinary tract issue going on, and there will be increased confusion. Your loved one will. Okay. Steve, are we able to? Somebody needs to mute their. There we go. So the dehydration is what would, if someone who does not have a dementia, is not diagnosed with one of the various dementias, is presenting like they have dementia, with confusion, with word finding issues. They might be disoriented to time and place, but they weren't 2 days ago. 2 days ago, they were fine. That needs further investigation. Dementia is not you don't have it Tuesday, you have it Wednesday. None of these are that. All of these tend to be relatively slow progressive. It's dementia in general, whether you have Alzheimer's, Lewy Body, or Frontotemporal, which are and vascular. Those four under that umbrella are the four primary leaders in the dementia space. But again, there's 100. They are slow progressive. So again, when somebody is great on Tuesday and you see them on Thursday and they're slurring their speech and they're disoriented, it's time to get a medical doctor involved, because that's not how dementia works. It's much more slower and progressive. So therefore, if they're exhibiting confusion, it could be something very controllable, like dehydration, which tends to be the number one reversible dementia. So enough of that. I can get very passionate on these things, but this is a great slide because, again, if you think of, a lot of times in training, we will use an actual cauliflower, or we'll cut a cauliflower in half, a very full, robust slice of cauliflower, and because that's kind of what this is, a picture of an actual brain, but that's what that, or it's a diagram of a brain. This is what a healthy brain looks like. All of those, it's very full. It's very, everything is kind of flush. Everything's kind of touching. Yes, there's some little spaces in between where the different stems grow, but this is a replica of what a healthy brain should look like. I will tell you, in my studies, I was able to get a degree from, like a leadership and development degree from Rush Medical in dementia care units, and that as part of my training. And I will tell you, part of that training, we did see a brain autopsy, because again, this was a dementia specific, certification. And it is amazing to see how these flush, robust, thick spaces become very separated. It's like it's like the cauliflower is breaking apart. And that's when you know that's what's actually happening inside the dementia brain. Again, slowly, progressively, the pathways are separating. There's so much more sophisticated language here that I won't bore you with, but for the function of today, why this is, I wanted to show this slide is because as we talk about designing of the home, it's good to know as you look on the left side, if depending on what type of dementia you have is going to impact how you progress through your journey. There are similarities in all of the dementias. I'll continue to talk about that, but different dementias present very differently. So one of the things I would like to kind of say at this moment, because I know I've got OTs on here and I've got physical therapy people and any one of you, if it's you helping a family member, or if you are helping to design for someone who's trying to care for their loved one who is living with dementia, you want to know what type of dementia they have. And I will tell you, you cannot imagine, it is a huge pain point in my professional world where we are moving residents into long-term care, into memory support neighborhoods. They clearly have dementia, but their charts that we, of course, as professionals are responsible for maintaining and monitoring, they will come to us with the doctor's note saying that their diagnosis is dementia. It's painful. It'd be like going to the, would you ever send a breast cancer patient to the hospital and not have breast cancer be on their chart? Here in the dementia space, it is a highly frustrating, because general practitioners, they don't get the training, and often people don't seek out neurologists, which I did with my father. That's how I know. The first thing you want to encourage people to do, if you are helping them in some capacity and dementia is on the radar or is suspected, is to get a diagnosis. And if they come back with a certificate saying, or a sheet saying dementia, possible dementia, you need to go further. You need to go into neurology and beyond when possible, because understanding what type of dementia the person is living with, or having an idea of based on what you're witnessing, that's another way of being able to kind of calculate what dementia you're dealing with. Again, I know many people will say, well, Ellen, listen, don't you only know about dementia? Like, do they even have it, or what kind it is, through autopsy? Because that's what we've been told. I know that's what the prevailing commentary is, that people think you can only diagnose what type of dementia it is at death. And of course, we can get a lot more of a larger picture, but I am telling you, depending on what part of the brain is being infected in the person that is living, and the attributes, are they losing skills that they had before? You will know what type of the brain, if you're familiar with this slide, and you will know you will start to pay more attention to what part of the brain is going into the atrophy. That absolutely helps us. And I'm going to go to my next slide, because the other way that helps us is, again, this is just a slide showing that dementia is a slow, regardless of the kind, for the most part. There is something we call young onset dementia, which is when you're diagnosed under the age of 65. That is early onset Alzheimer's is what we call that, young onset Alzheimer's. Under the age of 65, that is the most rapidly progressing dementia that we know of right now. However, you're still going to have it. You're still going to be living with it for at least 7 years or more. So it's still slow in the grand scheme of things, but not as slow as some of the others that you could be living with for 10, 12, and even 15 years. So it really is important to know. And I'll tell you, I'm going to get a little more specific into what some of the characteristics are of those. So just hold on to that for a second. I wanted to show you this slide because this is really applicable to so many, and I'm hoping you can see this as well as I can, but there are more than 5 million Americans living with Alzheimer's, just Alzheimer's. Another statistic we know is that 16 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias, excuse me. I am part of that statistic. I have a sense that there are many of you on this webinar today that are part of this statistic as well. I actually think this statistic is higher. I don't think we're all self-reporting, and I don't think I also think the 5 million Americans with Alzheimer's, I think that's actually probably higher, because some people don't seek diagnosis because their 80-year-old grandmother is getting forgetful and can't remember anyone's name or where she went to church for the last 65 years of her life. And people think that's normal. That's not normal. That is something to be investigated. So I do think some of these numbers are actually higher. They're just not reporting. So there is opportunity for us as professionals who are, even if you're adjacent in this space, even if you're a realtor and you're not doing day-to-day hands-on care or, providing physical therapy or occupational therapy to those with cognitive decline, it still is incumbent for us to be dangerously aware of what we're dealing with and have some kind of a tools in your toolbox that can make you help those in front of you, whether you're selling them a home that they hope to be dementia friendly, or again, those of you that are laying hands on people that are whether you're in their home doing PT, OT, or you're going into professional settings. And the more of us that are aware of what the conditions of dementia are as we do our jobs and navigate through our lives, the better off we will be. And the biggest recipient of all this graciousness will be those living with dementia, which those numbers, again, 1 out of every 8 people over the age of 65, as you will see right here in my next one, Alzheimer's disease is the most common. I do like to say, I still continue to say 65 to 70%. I don't believe it's at 90 like it used to be when I first got into this industry, as I've already indicated. But what we do know, and this is a thing, and it's growing because of our friends in the boomer generation. They are the largest generation of this number. They've been turning 65. 10,000 baby boomers a day have been turning 65 since the year 2011. This is an 18-year generation. So we will be continuing to have boomer consumers turning 65 until the year 2029. At this point, the statistic we go with is 1 out of every 8 of them 1 out of every 8 people over the age of 65 rather does get Alzheimer's disease. Again, you can see the slides in terms of how this impacts them. It is obviously the memory is, the thing that's the most notable in an Alzheimer's disease, and how, again, you can start to craft in your brain, what am I dealing with here? If you're dealing with somebody that can't remember what they had for lunch, but can meticulously tell you what they wore on their wedding day, or how their husband when they were both 17 proposed to each other, how the proposal went with precision and clarity, but yet again, they can't remember what you had for lunch 27 minutes ago, and they can't remember the name of your dog, which you visit with your loved one in this condition every other day, and they of course know your dog. That's short-term. It's the short-term memory that you will start to notice goes first. And those are things that people, we just as a society tend to just casually think, she's getting older. Yes, let me just say something. I am 50 plus. I will sometimes stop in the middle of a sentence, and I speak for a living, and I will stop in the middle of a sentence and I'll have a word finding moment. But the idea is, it usually comes to me. If it doesn't, or if I walk into a room in the kitchen, I'm like, wait a second, why did I just come in here? What was I coming in here for? And I backtrack it back to the family room, and I look around, I'm like, oh yeah, I was going into the kitchen to get a spatula for some crazy reason. That's a healthy brain. That's a healthy brain. I'm remembering that I don't remember. I'm able to recall. Don't get weirded out if you guys, forget where you leave your car keys, and if you lose your car keys, you do not necessarily have dementia. If you know you've lost your car keys and you're looking for them, good for you. Sign of a healthy brain. It's people with Alzheimer's, they don't know that they don't know. and they will fight you till the death because their reality is what they think it is. And here again is another issue that can come up when you're dealing with people or working with people or socializing with those that fall into this living with, Alzheimer's disease. You have to remember, we are in the professional sphere, we are trying to go away from suffering, dying of Alzheimer's. We're trying to ease up that language, and I would encourage you to do the same in your interactions, because people could absolutely live with Alzheimer's for 15 or more years. It'll get progressively worse, make no mistake, but they're living, and that's what I think we're all here to try to do and help that go more smoothly for them. And again, we're going to be talking about the environment, but I give you these. The things that I want you to pay attention to from this point on are what's in these boxes, because vascular dementia is one of the other top 4. And I'm going to, in lieu of reading every bullet point, I would like us to focus on this one in the orange box. These are some of the basic generalized things that you'll notice with people. Again, confusion is going to be pretty consistent throughout. Varying levels of confusion, but the paying attention and concentrating, it is different with vascular than it is, which is short-term memory loss. Somebody with vascular dementia, possibly due to a stroke, that is one of the most popular ways of how you fall into the vascular dementia category, or it's any other thing that caused your brain to have a vital loss of oxygen. You will have difficulty deciding to do what's next. It's that linear thinking that is also common in a couple others, but it's also why we shouldn't have a lot of stuff in the care environment that's going to, I already know that let's just say I know my loved one has vascular dementia because I've gone and gotten the diagnosis, as I should. I'm learning about what part of the brain is going into atrophy. I'm learning about, there's difficulty deciding doing what's next. There's an unsteady gait. I want my loved one to live at home with me. Well, therefore, I have to remove things in the environment that will impede or exacerbate their what to do next. I need to remove clutter and chaos and piles and bundles. Unsteady gait. Of course, I want my loved one to be able to walk smoothly. I need to remove trip hazards. And so that's how you kind of walk through why the environment is so critical as it pertains to what type of dementia they have. I'm going to stop there for a second. Steve, is there any questions? I know I get very worked up and I move fast, so forgive my passion, y'all, but just let me know if there's anyone that has any thoughts or questions.
We're good. Just keep going. Excellent.
So Lewy Body is, I did reference the fact that I am a child that walked this journey as well. This was the dementia diagnosis that my dad had. He actually had a dual diagnosis, which is not uncommon. Lewy Body and Parkinson's. I do not know the answer to this. I just know that Lewy Body and Parkinson's are two diseases that do come together quite often. And my dad, not 100%, but my dad fell into that category where he had a dual diagnosis of Lewy Body and Parkinson's. Again, if I was teaching a master class, I would tell you how we figure that out. What is it, Parkinson's with Lewy bodies, or is it Lewy Body with Parkinson's? My dad had Lewy Body with Parkinson's. The quick answer to how they come together is it depends, and how you determine which is more dominant is which of the symptoms from either track presented first. And in my dad, we can go back to one of the things, the sleep issues and disturbances. What I didn't write here, and these lists are much longer, I condensed them for this presentation, but the sleep issues and disturbances with my dad, where it actually became actively acting out dreams, screaming in the middle of the night, shouting obscenities. My dad was a religious Catholic, practicing Catholic, and he mortified his wife when he would wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. screaming obscenities because he thought somebody was coming into their room, into their home, into their bedroom where they were sleeping. I actually, as an adult child, when I came home from college and would stay with my parents, I remember these. So this would have gone back. I remember these disturbances of dad screaming out like that. I was a college student and was not a dementia expert yet, but as my dad's journey into the dementia diagnosis progressed, and I realized I knew we were dealing with Lewy body, as I went back in time and realized, wow, and this could present 20 years in advance, which in our case, it absolutely did. So dad was in his early 60s. He was not diagnosed until about 82. So for over 20 years, and these very active dream situations went well into his late 70s and into his 80s. So I now know that, and those are, again, that's something that if this is something that sounds familiar, or if in the work that you do, somebody, the spouse of who your patient is lamenting about this, oh, they can't sleep at night, they're up and down. Sleep disturbances is a very significant precursor to a Lewy body dementia diagnosis later in life. So it's the earlier you can get in front of these things, the better off we have to work with that. But again, here's another one, just like with vascular, it's a little more pronounced here in Lewy body. They do have, there's more slowing of movements. My dad absolutely had a shuffle gait, where the feet are just not really, he's not robustly picking up his feet as he's walking like we all do as we move quickly from space to space throughout our daily life. So again, these sleep issues and disturbances, which several of the dementias will have, you really need to make sure these bedrooms where these people are sleeping are free. If they're going to be getting up and down throughout the night for a variety of reasons due to their disease, instead of trying to impede them from getting up, like forcing them to stay down, we want them to be able to move freely. If their body is telling them they need to get up and it's 3 a.m, sadly, if your goal is to keep someone at home, we need to support that, but we need to do it in a safe way. And again, you'll see what the environment needs to look like as we move forward. Hang on one second. There we go. Frontotemporal is a tough dementia. I will say this is what we call an aggressive dementia. It still is going to move slow, and it's going to be what we still would say a progressive, slow-ish. I want to say the reason. Don't get confused that aggressive and slow moving are not, aggressive doesn't mean it's fast moving. Aggressive means it's a tough one. Why is it tough? Because as we go, if you think back to the cauliflower or the healthy brain that I shared with you, the front of the brain, the front of that where, like if you can see me, the front of your forehead, if you touch your forehead at the top, it's your hairline. That's the general area of your frontotemporal part of your brain. And the one thing about that area of all of our brains, what we all share, is that's where your social mores are stored. That's where you're not going to say to your neighbor who has gained 15 pounds possibly, wow, you're not going to tell them how fat they look. I actually have had one of my residents kick my chair and say, "You're putting on a lot of weight, baby." And I laughed because his name was Bill, and I knew Bill had frontotemporal lobe dementia. It is what it is. There's no, I've taken care of a lot of these residents over the years. There's a lot of, it does happen sometimes often younger. People, again, in their 50s and 60s will start to exhibit, again, behavior where they are saying things that are not aligned with normal social mores, things that they would have never said. Again, it is a trigger that there is something to explore a little deeper. Also here though, this repetitive compulsive behavior, there's a lot of pacing, there's a lot of moving. It's hard. I've had to work with culinary departments in one of my Atlanta buildings where we had 5 residents with frontotemporal lobe, and they were all women. It was a very interesting dynamic and a part of my career. It was when I was with Atria Senior Living, and of those 5, 2 of them lost significant weight in a relatively short amount of time. I, again, as the dementia expert, was sent in to assess the situation, and what I found out in that particular community is that those 2 women, most notably, they were part of the pacing. They didn't sit still. It didn't matter what we were doing. Even if you were trying to help them get dressed in the morning, they would walk out of their apartment door, regardless of what state of dress they were in, because they have to, their part of the journey was they had to move. They were on the move. Well, what I discovered in my assessment while I was there very quickly, that they were not sitting for meal times. They were up and on the move. And our staff needed the education that I then had to depart on them, that we need to give them food on the move. So these are the things that we do, struggle with in a professional setting. But of course, having the space work for you where somebody can move freely in a compulsive manner is, again, another reason to be, A, know what you're dealing with as you work with your clients, and B, use that information to make the case why it is crucial for us to ensure that the care environment that you're trying to stay and live in is working with you instead of against you. In the essence of time, I'm just going to, these are just more types of dementia. Korsakoff, sadly, as I was putting this presentation together, I present on this all the time. Korsakoff is something that we do deal with, again, as boomers, and I'm not making judgments. I'm just saying, we're starting to see younger people younger in my world is like in their 60s and 70s, coming into long-term care. And Korsakoff syndrome is something that we're starting to see a spike in, partly because it's a vitamin B1 deficiency, often attributed to alcohol abuse. And I've talked about this many times. I work with, professionals on this. However, I was thinking about it as I was getting ready for this, like, can you imagine the spikes that we're possibly going to see on this one if you've been locked down for 2 years, and some people may be left to their own devices? I don't know. I'm just saying, as a person who's, always thinking about these things, I am predicting in my own non-scientific way that we possibly will see even greater spikes in the years or decades to come. This is a the reason that Korsakoff, to qualify for the dementia to kick in, it's prolonged, untreated, undiagnosed alcohol abuse. So we're talking, like, it's not like because you went on a couple of benders you're going to get Korsakoff. This is years of heavy alcohol abuse, which leads to the vitamin B1 deficiency. But I am just a little curious about if we'll see a spike in that in the next decade. Hopefully I will be retired and I won't know, but you never know. Okay, so as I indicated, and as we move now towards the next phase of really looking what this looks like in reality in terms of environments, my 4-pillar, I told you I was a holistic dementia care solutions person. I've been practicing that amazingly. I had already formulated this philosophy and this style of working with clients even before my dad was diagnosed. And I was about 10 years in the business at the time when my dad was diagnosed with his Lewy Body and Parkinson's, and I was fighting mightily for us to maintain as holistic of and I lived by all of these. Nutrition is another big one that I like to speak on, of how food is medicine. And anyway, but in regards to today, environment, and I want to say, as we now move into the next phase, we were able to, my mom was 80, let's see, dad would have been, my mom was, I think, 86, in her 83 when my dad was diagnosed. Dad would have been around 82 when we got the official diagnosis. And our goal was to keep dad at home as long and safe with his wife of 62 years. Well, at the end of his life was 62 years. And I employed all of the things that I am going to be showing you. What we're about to see is, I knew that what we needed to put into place for this to even work. So the hard conversations that I know some of you are worried about, I just recently wrote an article about, well, this is creating it. I'm going to get right to the pictures. This picture right here, I just recently wrote about this. This scene I'm about to describe was part of one of the recent stories that I shared. Again, I do encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn if you're interested in all, where I can go and you can get more details about the logistics of how certain things come together. This is my parents' family home. It was, again, was. And I knew my dad now had the Lewy Body and Parkinsonian dementia. I knew that there was going to be movement issues. I knew all the things that were coming down the pike for us. My mother was his primary day-to-day caregiver, obviously. Sadly, at this time, I lived 900 miles away, but I was flying back and forth, and I was participatory, and I was the second in command in terms of the day-to-day, but I absolutely was pulling a lot of strings behind the scenes as his advocate, that even to this day, my mom doesn't know what I had to do. But all of that to say, why I show you this home, this part of it is, at the time, for most of the 15, 16 years they lived here up until this point, there was a beautiful, I don't know if you can see my mouse on here, but in the middle of this space, there was a beautiful white, very thick, very plush, white bearskin area rug. It was one of the first things that I had to stand in this room on top of the bear rug as my mom and I stood there looking at each other. On one of my trips home, I knew that our goal was to keep dad safe and healthy, as long as mom could be safe and healthy too. This is a two-person part of the equation. And for those of you that are working with elders in their home, whether you're trying to help them update it so that they can age in place, you have to remember it's not uncommon when one of them has dementia and the other one is providing care in an elder spouse situation, that the non-demented spouse, who's the caregiver, passes first. The stress level is incredible, especially if we're not in front of it. If they don't know what to expect and they're just flying by the seat of their pants in a very unsafe environment, and all of these minefields are happening, in addition to bad nutrition, in addition to staying locked up with the doors and windows closed and never getting outside, you have an absolute recipe for disaster. So I am aware of all that. And so I really had to make the case, and I'm a bulldozer, make no mistake. I bulldoze through life, but in this case, I am the youngest of my parents' children. I do have this expertise there. I did have street cred with them at this point. At this point, my dad was not involved in these conversations. This was mom and I, and we had to stand on that bear rug. And I had to say, I know, mom, you got this. When you and dad traveled to Yosemite Park and you bought this at the gift shop outside of Yosemite Park. I'd heard the story many times at this point. I knew how much this meant. But I had to say, let's stay focused on what your goal is. Does your goal, this is me and my mom having this conversation. I was probably a little more gentle than I'm being right now. I said, if your goal remains, mom, for dad to stay here with you in a safe manner, as long as possible, we have to get this bear rug off the floor. We need this floor to be safe for dad. He had a walker at this point, like a rolling walker at this point. That walker is going to get stuck on this floor. And he can't navigate this space, and you and him sit here, and they used to hold hands sitting in those recliners. They would hold hands sitting in the two green recliners on the right side. So I had to gently acknowledge that I knew this is painful. I had to gently acknowledge that I absolutely am. It doesn't mean we have to get rid of it forever. We just have to remove it for now. And there you go. That, as long as you can always keep your eye on what the ultimate goal is. Here's another, this is the entryway of their condo. I took these pictures because I knew someday I was going to be talking about this, because I was literally living with this in real time. Also, if you can see this is like the entryway. Our vantage point is like as if we were standing in their doorway to get into their condo. There originally had been a very low pile, I will say, but it was a long rug, a long thin rug, because this is Wisconsin. They live in Wisconsin, and snow gets in here. These are engineered hardwood floors, which, by the way, I was thanking my every lucky star that this is what their home looked like. They built this home. They were the first. They were part of the build of this condo. They picked these smooth engineered wood. They picked the doors with the lever handles. I mean, I couldn't have gotten some better luck in my life when it came to this part of their journey, because we were pretty far ahead of the game at this point. So we did have to remove that, and it meant that there was some extra cleaning that had to happen on that floor once in a while, but it was a safe, smooth space. I will also point out here, this wasn't a problem for my dad, but it's another trick that I do like to talk about environmentally in a home. Again, I got lucky on this as well. The pieces of artwork that you see on the two walls here, there's three large pieces of artwork. They are maybe a little fuzzy to us, but this one on the front had the bird. These were very obvious pictures. They were also from my parents' travel. I like large scale artwork. I always talk about it in a professional setting because having having recognizable items like large artwork, not little bundled tiny clusters of zillions of pictures. Having big recognizable is also helpful for wayfinding in a professional setting. Oh, I know I need to turn left at the horse at the end of this hall. That's where my room is. And if that's how I work with my clients professionally, but also in a home-like setting as well. Again, you're trying to have a peaceful, uncluttered, but yet comforting. These are places that they had traveled. These are things that they had picked up in their travels. They were big. And my dad was able to still look at these. And I was on many walks with him where we would come through this door and have to come down this hallway to get back into the house. And he would reference these. So again, it was nurturing for him, and it made him feel welcome in the home that he was probably starting to not recognize. This was the bedroom. At one point, because my dad was getting up and down so much in the night, he was having to, we had to separate him from my mom, because again, remember, I'm having two elder parents I'm paying attention to here. We did have to get people to come and stay in the overnight so that my mom could sleep and get a good night's sleep, because her caregiving duties were starting to increase. And the reason I show you this picture, again, no clutter. So he would sleep in this bed. Again, our vantage point of this picture is the doorway. So he would have to get out of that bed there and come towards this door to use the restroom in the middle of the night, which he consistently did about 2 to 3 times throughout his journey. Early on, there was a dresser drawer on that left where that white space is on the left side. There was a dresser drawer there originally. This was a guest room. This is where I slept when I came, but we removed that, moved the drawer to a different wall so that there was absolutely nothing that would impede Dad's movement when he got up in the middle of the night and had to exit out from that bed and through the door. So again, as we are looking to create as we move to the next group of slides, we want to minimize excessive pattern in both furniture and flooring. Why is that? Because again, for vascular, for frontotemporal, for Lewy body, even Alzheimer's, when you're starting to have, your brain is going into atrophy. We're not exactly sure what part of the brain always, but as we figure it out, as things become a little more pronounced, we are going to know. But the bottom line is your brain is going into atrophy. So the hallucinations, I'm seeing things that aren't there. The other thing that is going to happen, remember, often we're dealing with aging bodies. They might have cataracts. They might have visual impairment to macular degeneration on top of dementia. So excessive things, excessive pattern, having to make decisions in navigating flooring isn't great for aging bodies in general, but now you're piling on more confusion onto people that are confused, who are just trying to make sense of what they think they're seeing, even as they're just standing still. So as you want them to move through the space, if there's lots of pattern, it can be very confusing, and it does present differently visually to the person who's trying to navigate that space. So let's talk about what that looks like here. Now, granted, I'm sure this picture was in Home Beautiful. I'm sure there are people that would love to have this. This is a nightmare for a person like me. If this is a home setting, again, as you can, obviously, we've got a layered rug, and not for nothing, I was laughing at this when I found this picture, because I'm like, really? The photographer couldn't even see that the one rug is like rolling up on top of the other rug? Hello? Even the child could trip over that. I found that hilarious. The pillows, good golly, I got a plush sofa to begin with, and now I've got 64, what it feels like to me, patterned pillows on top of a plush. There's not a chance in heck anyone with dementia would want to sit on that. Or what would they do? They'd throw all the pillows off and maybe plunk down on that. Now they're causing a bigger trip hazard with pillows now on the floor. This white, cushy, footstool looking like thing, again, just an absolute trip hazard as it's half on the carpeting. Think about how you try to navigate around this space. If I have a shuffle gait, God forbid, if I have any kind of a walker or a cane, an extra walking device that I also have to navigate this space with. So again, hopefully you are all understanding what a nightmare this is, and helping people, to coach them away from this. This picture is a disaster in my mind as well, partly because this couch couldn't be any worse. There's absolutely no, again, let me harken back real quick to my dad. This is a picture of a chair. This chair is an ideal chair in a dementia space. Straight back, you've got arms on either side for safe upward and downward movement, because again, we want our people to move. I want, and hopefully my OTs will be cheering me on this one. I want my person with, living with dementia, as because my dad would sit down here and often put on his shoes or take off his slippers to put on his shoes to go walk outside. So I would say, reach back, Dad. He would reach back with both arms. So he's balancing his own body weight on those strong side arms and lowering himself. And likewise, we would do it on the up, to rise up, push up, Dad. And of course, there would be times I'd have, while he's pushing up his own body weight, of course, I would lend a hand under his armpit. Why am I talking about this so specifically? You want people to remain as independent for as long as possible. And something like I just described, being able to get up and down with your own body weight using the benefit of the proper chair, I'm telling you, it is absolutely a dignified way for people to be aging in place in their own homes. So I bring you back to this picture because this sofa is a disaster. I mean, if you don't take Pilates and you're sitting in the middle, that might be a hard chair to get out of, because you got to have pretty good abdominal strength to navigate up and out of something that is just plush. There's no, arms to help you get in and out of. The other reason I bring it in this picture, again, here we go with carpet on carpet, but the black stripe is something that for me professionally really popped out, because one of the things I will tell you, so if you're a designer or you're a person in, helping people navigate in a professional setting and probably even in a home setting as well, it's not uncommon for those that are living with dementia to want to get the hell out of where they are. They want to get out. They want to go see whatever is on the other side of the door. It's not uncommon for one of the first lines of defense for us in senior housing is to place an all black mat in front of one of our emergency exit doors. Why do we do that? Because for whatever reason, again, I only know I know what I deal with. I don't know the medical reasoning necessarily. Is that black absolutely looks like again, with the visual impairment, the cognitive issues, a black rug in front of a door does deter people from walking over that to get to the door. It does, we believe, because they can't always tell us, but I've done it so often and it does work, that I know that they think it's a hole. They think that they can't cross over it. In a setting like this, when it's just a stripe of black, I've also witnessed this in caregiving environments where the person will, if there is anything black, they will step over it. So they'll be walking down the hallway perfectly fine, and then you'll see them move their foot to get over this black line. It's a phenomenon that I've experienced, and I thought about sharing it with you guys here, that this type of a pattern could, just because the black is kind of interspersed and it's thin, could absolutely present very confusing and create even a bigger movement issue if this was a carpeting or something like this, or anything black. Fleur-de-lis, you'll see like a fleur-de-lis carpet a lot of times. That also gets very distracting because there's a lot going on in that pattern. It's not uncommon for me to be walking with someone in a dementia space where they bend over and they're picking things. They think they're picking something up. I've even had them hand it to me. There's absolutely nothing that they're handing me. I, of course, go with it because I know what's going on. The environment is working against us. They are distracted by the pattern in the carpet. Okay, this goes without saying for a variety of reasons. Bad chairs, bad wallpaper, bad floor, too much clutter. This is a disaster. I think you're starting to understand. But let's talk about what's good. I'm a fan of having tactile things. So clearing the clutter, and again, I have the clutter conversation. I know that's the next slide. Clearing the clutter, but you still need things that are in the environment that are safe. I'm a big fan of chunky blankets. I'm a fan of weighted blankets. There's a lot of research that's been done for all of us, quite frankly, but it does work. There are weighted lap blankets. So while your loved one or those in your care are sitting in a chair, observing life go by, they have a weighted, even heated weighted blanket on their lap that does provide comfort, that does for all of us, but it's something that I absolutely would have. A big chunky blanket like this, that's just, you don't care if it, if it's just easy, it's light, it's something that's just feels good, it's tactile. What we call this on the right-hand side is a comfort cushion. So instead of a bunch of fluffy pillows that are nothing, you could have one or two of these, even if they're in a basket, in the corner out of the walkway. But once your loved one sits down, present them with the comfort cushion. This is a tactile, vibrantly colored. We do know that lime green, I have researchers in my world that have told me this, so now I believe it. Lime green, oddly, is one of the last colors goes unrecognizable. So they see lime green, all dementias late into the journey. It's a magnificent thing. So I like this one. This is tactile. I can fidget with it. I can hold it. It makes me comforted in my space as I'm, navigating. For those of you that are worried about having to clear out clutter, I get it. And I call them life treasures. I think we should be referring to that. I encourage us to corral them, corral the keepsakes. So if the ones that you're working with they have, 700 postcards from every trip they've ever taken, and they've been keeping them on the dining room table, let's get them into a box. So you don't have to throw it away. We're just corralling it, and we'll put it on a shelf, and we'll reach for it and present it to our loved one with dementia when we want them to engage. I hope that makes sense. Another thing I'm a fan of, I'm a big fan of this in a professional setting. I love this. If you have the opportunity, if someone is open to doing some internal renovations, and there's a lot of life treasures, and you have 700 boxes, so you have to figure out another way to, maybe you only have 15 boxes stored on shelves, but you could also create what I call it the curiosity cabinet. Obviously, that's not what this is, but something like this could be, if it's not too terribly difficult to create a curio cabinet, if you will, or a built-in bookshelf in some manner where, again, you can still see inside of it, but it's not all strewn around the living space. So hopefully that makes sense. Indoor, outdoor light. I show this picture because natural light. Natural light is so very crucial. We want people with cognitive decline to have, be oriented to whether it's day or night. There's a variety of reasons for that. Most notably, you want them to, as much as they can, be awake in the daytime hours and sleep at the nighttime hours. So it doesn't always work, but we do shoot for that goal. I like big, let's lose, when we can, when it's appropriate, lose the heavy curtains. Make sure that if we have curtains, they're being opened. Or if you're renovating something, make it an easy curtain to open so that's not fixed and it's all heavy and claustrophobic. This floor is great. I'm a big fan of LVT. My husband and I did some renovations. I put LVT in this home that I live in. The other reason I wanted to show this picture is the ease of access to this outdoor deck area. Now, I don't know if this deck, I know that there's a balcony of some sort to the right off this door. I don't know if it's a safe one, but I like the idea of how easy this would be to go from a safe flooring of this room out this door to the outside. You don't have to crawl over anything, step around 700 things. It's an easy exit to the outside. We want people to be able to be outside. In the essence of Timeout, of course, I don't love this furniture or the rug, but in this picture, I want you to focus on, again, another way to, in the back corner here, hopefully you guys can see my mouse as I'm scrolling over that, another way to corral through, building in a niche to corral items. The other thing I like here is this shade. Is this light shade it comes down, easy up, easy down. It's within the frame. My guess is because of the way this home looks that this is this is electric. I can go up and down with it. But regardless, it's simple. It's so often people don't open the windows and curtains because they got to do the blinds and then they got to open the curtains. This is easy. We want day night. orientation, and this is an easy way to present that. Also, please, if you have the ability, if it's safe, if you're going to spend any kind of money, if there is money to be spent, make sure you've got things in the outdoors. Not only is it easy to get to the outdoors, but it's inviting. It makes you want to be in the outdoors. I'm not, we're not going to judge this on the safety necessarily. On this one, what I liked here is, let's get some texture on the ceiling. Let's get some green plants. That this is a smooth walking surface to get to that. I think that's a swing on the end. I probably would make that a bench. But again, it's visually inviting. If you can only have colorful containers off of a window that your loved one can see out of easily, or go easily and safely outside to sit at. Again, you want life and vegetation. And FYI, it's a great activity engagement to do gardening. Even if you think your loved one would never garden, and you'd be amazed at what you can get them to do. Here's another thought, again, for you, those of you that might be helping people, renovate. I show this one, and I'll tell you this. This is a professional setting, and this is what I always work with our designers. Get a bird bath, get bird houses. Here's a mailbox. As I saw this sign, I thought, how fun. My parents lived in Wisconsin. How fun but my dad was from Rochester, New York. How fun would it be to have if we could have made this happen, one sign saying, Milwaukee, and the other sign, this crosswalk sign on the other side saying, Rochester. It would be a talking point for him and I, as we would have been outside to, and it acts as a reminiscing. It's comfortable. It's this small little tiny quirks that you can only believe make such a huge difference. Signage. We use signage sometimes in professional settings. It's okay to use it in in a home-like setting. These are easy to buy. I will also say, handrails on both sides of the toilet, you all. We need people to be able to, again, use their body strength to get up and down. We also like contrasting colors again, this is an awful bathroom. I only show this to you for the toilet itself. A raised toilet with the bars on both sides, and it's a contrasting color. For our men who will not open that, who sometimes don't know where to go with their aim, having that lid up, and the black, again, that black hole, if that lid was up, you would see the hole between the blackness, and that helps our gentlemen be able to keep their aim a little better. As we get close to closing here, and thank you, Steve, I know I'm a little bit over. We do want our friends to be safe, but but you also, if you're in a home-like setting, they're going to sometimes in the middle of the night or during the day, whatever, want to possibly get out of the living environment, regardless how great it is. That's why we want good outdoor space, because if you encourage and welcome people to be outside, they won't try to get out of your place so often. This picture on the left is, again, the lever handle that we love. This is that white thing that is around it is like $14 on Amazon. People with dementia would not be, or any of us, we can't get that. We can't fully get out the door because we can't fully execute the handle, because that's impeding us, and they will eventually tire of that. Some people also will, what we also recommend in home-like settings is the bolt. Maybe this is on an interior door. Maybe you don't want your loved one to get into your sewing room because you can't unclutter that. So you're just going to lock it off. To lock that off, you lock it above height level. You lock it I'm showing this lock because I would use this about a foot above my head, and I'm 6 feet tall. Depending on what it is, it has to be out of the peripheral vision of your person with dementia. So if it's a 5'8", husband, you could put that, as long as it's a foot above his head or so, they will not look up to see how to unlock the door. They will just keep trying to rattle the doorknob. They will not have any luck getting in there because you will have it deadbolted from above. And again, they move on. I'm telling you, that actually is a trick that does work. So the last slide I have for you guys today is, again, if the goal is to live with the person living with dementia and their care partners to remain at home, we have to be able to, although each person is unique, these are some of the constants, these movements, the visual, the cognitive changes, the disorientation. So we need the environment to support them. and just being able to speak to that as to why it's important for those that you're serving to really focus, don't minimize the importance of the environment. Again, I know that was a lot, super nutrient dense. I could do a half day on this, Steve, I guarantee you, but I thank you for your time. This is how you can stay in touch with me if you are so inclined, and I appreciate being able to speak with you all today.
Oh, it was great. Thank you so much. You may have some questions, comments. You can contact Ellen directly at her information there. As she says, she is on LinkedIn, very active, as am I, and that's another way to keep in touch with her. And if you want to just pop some questions into the chat, I'll relay them. I think you all had planned on an hour for today, and we're there. So unless there's a really quick question we can pose to Ellen, we will let it continue on after we close out. So with that, I would say thank you, Ellen. Thanks everyone for joining us. And until our next time, we appreciate it. Have a good Tuesday, the 2nd of the second month, 22nd of the second month of 22. Got you covered, Ellen. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.